There we go. Now everyone's showing up. Hey guys, I don't know if you guys just heard me, so apologies for repeating. Sorry for being a little bit late here. I was just running off of a call. Um, Hopefully everybody is good this morning. Looks like we have about 12 participants thus far, so we'll just give it 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. How's everybody doing this morning? Great. Why I'm getting these pins? So strange, but I guess they stopped now. We're gonna give it a couple minutes, guys.
Morning, Brandon.
All right. We got 16 people. In the interest of time, I'll get started. Whoever said good morning to you as well. Uh,
Good morning.
Feels like it's been an afternoon for me with these calls in the morning, but I'm sure you guys are busy as well. So last week was really interesting. I hope you guys liked Tony. I know that he had a couple technical glitches there, but he is really, for me, like an authority on digital marketing. So we were doing some discussing after last week's call about this really interesting area of like prospecting, if you will. And digital marketing used to kind of be, I want to say, relegated to this corner here, but it was something that was part of your complete kind of marketing toolkit. And as you guys have probably realized, it's less about it being fringe or disparate or something else on top of, and it actually is your business. And I think for a lot of us, and I want to speak for you guys, it's been uh, that evolution has been kind of difficult to really grasp, right? And digital marketing is so amorphous now because it's grown to encompass so many things. So as we progress through this track, we're going to be spending a lot of time here because if you're not digitally proficient or conversant, I hate to say it, it's going to be very difficult to survive in today's world, right? There's obviously the balance of your brand being personable, face-to-face interactions, but we have to find and create ways to scale you so you can be in places that physically you can't and add dimension to your business. So hopefully you guys found that informative last week. We're actually going to have him next week host, call it a bumper session off the topic that we'll discuss today, which is around offers and re-engaging your existing client base and stale leads. And what you'll see happen is I'll do end up doing sessions rooted in kind of theory and the what to do, and Tony will actually show you how to do it, which I think is always a missing part of some of these trainings. So just want to give you guys some context here. You'll be seeing Tony more often, so hopefully you enjoyed his material. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to put today's presentation up. Right. And someone just say yes if you can see my screen because I can't see your guys' images.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, guys. Today, let me just do 2 seconds here. We are going to be discussing offers. Let me go into presentation mode. And, I'll start by saying that offers are probably a strange strange nomenclature. Whoops. Let me take this out of here. This thing is moving faster than I would like. All right. Offers are a kind of a new, I guess you could call it, this new language. I wasn't necessarily familiar with the term offer. And when Tony started, we started working together, and he was kind of bringing this idea and theory around offers. Like, it took me to this place of like, what am I, like coupons, walking around with coupons? Like, it just seemed really transactional and very pedestrian, for lack of a better word. And for you guys and those of you who operate in the luxury world, offers is like anathema. You're like, oh my God, like I can't be going around selling offers. But as we were kind of talking more about it, and I was learning about the power of an offer, it started to kind of just change my perspective on it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about it. What does an offer mean? What does it look like? What are compelling ones? What is it meant to do for your business? And again, next week we'll talk about how do we actually execute them in the real world, right? And how do we measure our success when we send out communication, regardless of the message? How do we know when we're successful? I've talked to a couple of you. We've talked specifically about postcards and other marketing tactics. And I'm like, well, what's been the result? And some of you have been like, oh, we got one kind of lead or two leads. And, is that successful for what you spent? I'd venture to say probably not, but how are we measuring it? What do we know? What does success look like? Right. So we'll talk more about that next week. Today, it's about offers. So what I want you guys to end up walking away from this meeting feeling a bit more confident about is moving away from kind of generic follow-ups that are really not moving the needle, right? Language that isn't putting pressure or bringing your client to the table, and finding interesting ways to re-engage cold leads, and also people that you've worked with in the past. There's an age-old adage in selling saying there's no better customer, no cheaper customer to get than the one you just worked with. And in this business, it's very difficult to get a customer to transact with you again because of what they are buying, right? They're not buying something that transacts with high frequency. And so to go back and be like, hey, we sold your home. Are you interested in a new one? 2 weeks later, 2 months later, it's not realistic, not practical. But there's certainly ways that you can activate your client base and find value, get value from them in other ways, especially if you've done a good job for them. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's kind of get into it. So I always remind you guys of the story arc. Give me 2 seconds. I always like to remind you guys of kind of the story arc and the journey that we're going on, and why it's important is because it just kind of grounds why the stuff matters and how you should be thinking about the building blocks of your business. So I won't go through all 7 of them. Clearly, we started with changing the mindset, this new approach to prospecting rooted in property intelligence. And we've kind of evolved into, hey, we know where we're going. We know what we're trying to achieve. We know what we're best suited to be selling and where we want to sell. Now we have to figure out, well, how do we actually find people to sell to? And then when we sell to them, how do we actually create a compelling message that resonates with them based on a whole bunch of variables? Their situation, who we are, our brand, what we're best suited to sell. And then what are the channels in which we engage with them? What work for my business, what don't? And then once we get a lead, or once we find someone, how do we get them into our funnel? How do we create ways to have a conversation, not necessarily sell that individual in that moment, right? And this is the big shift, but set the stage for ongoing dialogue. So when the time is right, you've built up that relationship capital where you can strike and their situation. And today we're going to take a slight change and we're going to think about, well, how do we actually activate people that we've worked with or people that we've reached out to, didn't necessarily hear back, maybe because the time wasn't right for them. they still exist in our CRM. So how do we re-engage them? So there's a psychology behind this. As you know, I always through these sessions like to tell you guys here is there's ways in which you can get people interested, think about the things that are the fears, threats, motivations that are going around in our world today, and bring people to the table, right? Unlock the motivation, increase the urgency. We'll learn about this universal offer design, right? So stuff that you can create, not like 15 different things, 15 different channels, running 1 to 2 plays in consistency, running them time and time again, and calibrating when you see opportunities. How to master re-engagement, how to send these campaigns out so you can do it at scale, so you guys can go do what you do and know that something's working for you in the background. And that's kind of the automation piece, the scaling piece we'll talk more about. So I'll go through this, I'll skip through this rather and kind of get right into it. So when we think about an offer, when re-engaging people that are in your network, the typical thing I think people do, not just in real estate, but in any sales profession, when thinking about their retention marketing efforts, is like, hey, it's Brandon Weaver just pinging you to check in. And while that's great, we all know what we feel like when we see something that comes across saying just checking in. The first thing, at least I do, is think about, oh, they must be trying to sell something. And I go back to the last time I engaged with that person and think, well, why would they be trying to engage with me again? Right. And then I kind of put them into this category. And even if I like the person, I still kind of segment them. But I have this kind of picture of where they fit into my world and what they actually want from me. Some of the things I like to do when doing a check-in are, hey, I noticed something that I thought you'd be interested in, or something crossed my mind today. I'd love to pick your brain on it. Or you crossed my mind today, figured I'd drop a line. Same sort of execution, but just seems a bit more personal, right? Moving from this, we transacted to, hey, I consider you part of my network and my family. And when I think about you, when I think about opportunities, you come to mind. Not when I think about transacting, you come to mind. And what we do is we shift this dynamic from being really pushy, this is all about me and getting my agenda across, to this world where, hey, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? Yes, we had a successful transaction. The presumption is that you were thrilled with the work that I did for you. Now this is about, how do I stay relevant in your life? And we know that a lot of times that once we transact, that doesn't mean that there's never a time to transact again, or like there's not other situations where that client could use your help. One thing we did, which some of you guys might do after the move in, the client moves in, presuming you sold them a home, uh, offering bolt-on services, right? Because you are a real estate agent and you've done this before, you work with a range of vendors that can help ease that process. Maybe it's a move-in onboarding guide, right? How to smooth that transition. Maybe it's something you offer about, hey, here's the area in which you moved and all the different things that you would want to know, especially if you're a family moving in. Maybe you're not a family, but just things that you would want to know. Something to just cushion what is a chaotic and oftentimes just stressful process to them. Right. This is a great way to kind of open up the relationship here to where you transition from, hey, nice working with you, toast to your success, moving on, to, hey, let's continue this relationship and I can be of service to you in many different ways. Right. So that's a service driven approach, right? Which is highly relevant in that moment because we all know what that's like, right? When we move into a new home and transition. Right. So let's play upon that, take advantage of that. There's also the insight driven approach where there's, hey, maybe it's not right after you sold the home. Maybe it's 6 months, a year, and you're messages around preparation. Purchasing a home is an asset. Yes, it's where they live, right? So there's utilization of that asset, but it's an asset. And people look at it oftentimes as a way to either earn money or realize something. So you coming in and having a conversation around, hey, this is a milestone purchase for you. We just want to make sure you are able to protect it, able to maximize value, and we start thinking about your future and that next step. Even if it is in the home, right? You have a range of partners in your network, lenders, whoever it might be, that can help. Attorneys, if you want to set up a trust. So here you are again from a service perspective, coming in and helping them in these in between moments before a transaction. And all this is doing is keeping you top of mind. Ari, who it runs the real estate side of our business and Voyage, I remember when we first started working together, he transacted 12 times in 2024. And I asked him, I was like, well, what are you doing to re-engage those clients? And he's like, truthfully, I'm not doing anything. And it was shocking to me. So every single year, he was having to find new clients, new leads, and didn't realize that there was just this treasure here in his own network that if he was smart and thought about how to activate them differently, maybe had a structure in place, he might be able to actually not maybe transact with them more, maybe not an owner occupied, but a second home or a non-owner, but at least keep the relationship going to where when it was time, he didn't seem like a stranger. He was top of mind with that client. And I can't tell you, it actually came to light when he had a client who he didn't keep the conversation going. And the client purchased the home and ended up selling it probably 5 months later. Something had changed in the situation. Maybe they needed to relocate. I can't remember. But that client didn't think of Ari, even though 5 months ago they just did this big transaction, $5 million home. The gentleman went with someone else. And that should never happen. If you're doing these things, you should be top of mind, not annoying, but thoughtful, right? And thinking about the things that someone might be going through, what they might not have capacity to deal with, the things that they haven't thought about, but because you've done it so many times. Right? Here's how to get ahead of it. Here's how we prepare and plan. And that preparing and plan, I don't want to call it a script, but messaging approach usually always works, because who doesn't like to be prepared, or who doesn't like to plan? Hold on a second. So real world offers that create conversations. So, some of you who I've talked to know that the home value checker market equity update. This is something that people do it. It works. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it per se, but it does work. And I think it can work when delivered in a digestible format and to the right client at the right time when it makes sense. But there's certainly, and we talked about it, right? So the service message, the consultation strategy sort of message, the opportunistic one. And these are where having certain tools at your disposal can help you, right? So your ability to actually re-engage with the client, maybe not 6 months, maybe a year, maybe a year and a half later, around, hey, your home's appreciated. You might be sitting on some equity. Has your situation changed? Or you may not even know your situation's changed. Let's have a conversation. Maybe something comes from it, maybe something doesn't. But it's a great way to reach out. It is not forceful or pushy. It's opportunistic. And if you message the right way, again, setting the expectation that this is something you do with your client base, this is a norm. And what it looks like is, hey, I'm talking to a ton of my clients, a year after they moved in, just reassessing their plans, see where they're at, see if anything's changed. When you say it like that, you're probably, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Somebody would do that. But a lot of times when we say it, it probably doesn't move the needle, or it gets missed, or just feels salesy. And so a slight change in the approach changes the way they kind of look at you. But I will say this, when sending that sort of communication, if you haven't had the, call it the tissue communication, the bridge communication, it does seem salesy and pushy, right? So this is around positioning yourself as someone who is part of their repertoire, part of their world. How can I help? How can I be of service to you? The neighborhood market report is another one. I always think this is really interesting because we tend to think that people, or I used to tend to think that people like really, really find it valuable. Um, but I know that in the area that I'm in, I'm just not paying attention to what is happening around me, what things are trading, what's happened in the area, businesses that are closing, businesses that are opening, how home prices have moved in relation to the broader market and then the national market. And it's not necessarily, hey, I'm sending this to you so we can transact. Hey, I'm sending this to you so you have an idea of what's happening in the world around you. As you're a busy professional, I can imagine it's difficult to make sense of all this noise, all these different stories. So I wanted to put together a report that just helped you organize and orient yourself in this world. Happy to have a conversation if you see something there that resonates with you or you have a question. All right, so that neighborhood market report becomes less of a here's an econ homework assignment for you to read and more about, hey, I get where you're at. You're busy. Engage with it if you want or not. But a lot of people find this information helpful. Slight change lands better. And all these tactics and things that you're doing, you know, some people think, oh, well, it's inauthentic and doing it because you ultimately want to transact. And listen, people are always going to say that, but you're in sales. I think there's a way in which you can humanize and uh, relay a sense of authenticity around it. But also the authenticity comes in, your engagement. So not just necessarily you sending the communication, but if you do sit down with these individuals, and we'll talk about one tactic that I've seen work. Um, if you do communicate, don't just think about reloading, getting your agenda across. How are you doing? What's changed in your life? And making it about them first before you start to unleash what your agenda is. And I think all of us on this call, when this happens to us, we would want to be approached the same way. But we all know what it feels like when we have old sellers or old people we engage with in our life, and they start with that message. And I know firsthand because I'm out there raising money for my company. So people who, when they see me, they're probably like, oh, Jesus Christ, this guy's going to come and tell me about why Navigate's so great. Being conscious of that, I always ask, how are you doing? What's changed in your life before I go into my pitch? But it also helps contextualize my approach, right? If someone's like, hey, there's a death in the family, I'm certainly not going to be like, oh, it's great. Navigate, we're here doing it. It doesn't make any sense. And so it's understanding who you're dealing with, the people you're talking to, um, and that they're human beings, and picking up on these notes and what resonates with them. And the one thing I will say, which is not captured in these slides, but one tip or approach that I like to use, you guys have heard me say it here before, is just the mention of, I was talking to one of my clients, what I like to do with the people that I work with. Even if you don't do it, doesn't mean that you never will or that it's not on the top of your mind. But little things like that, when you communicate, signal that people trust you, people have bought into you. This is a normal thing you do. So if they're like, wow, this is abnormal, by you just framing it saying, hey, I was talking to my last client. Hey, I was talking to, and sometimes you can put a name in there. Like
Hey,
I've
Mary.
told you guys some of that on our calls. Sometimes when you do that, it legitimizes it or makes them feel more comfortable because they say, hey, I'm not alone, or wow, someone else is doing it and I'm not. Maybe I should, because we know psychologically no one likes to be left behind or not feel like they're a part of something, just a human truth, if you will. So offers that kind of create a conversation. when we think about past clients we worked with, one thing that I think people struggle with is asking for the referral. And for whatever reason, I don't know. I know some top realtors may think it's beneath them. I have no idea. All I know is when I look at other agents and they successfully transact, there's no mechanism to either leave a Google review, share with them, hey, I'm trying to build my business. Do you know anyone who's in your similar situation or who might be interested? Um, and tapping into that network to really activate and grow your sphere. And one of the things that offers, like, why they work is not just asking them to do something with no exchange in return. It is the exchange of value. Hey, thank you for taking time. I prepared this for you. Or how can I help you? Or I put this together for you in anticipation of this. What would be really meaningful for me is if you know anybody who is interested in the market, confused about what's going on, can you put me in touch? By going in and just asking someone to do something, they will prioritize it in their world. And if you're like me and like everybody else, it probably sits last. No one is actively out there thinking, how can I help Brandon do this when they wake up in the morning? It's not the reality. But if you do the equity exchange, all of a sudden you built up this piggy bank here of equity with someone where they almost feel obligated to help you because you've given them something, even if they didn't ask for it. And that referral, that endorsement, that's what opens up these opportunities and doors. And maybe you won't get an endorsement to someone who wants to transact right now. But again, I will always say this, Tony will repeat it. It reminds me every day. This is not about you trying to sell in that moment. This is about you trying to create more conversation. And that is the shift in perspective I want you guys to kind of walk away with. Right? The conversation starts everything. It is permission for you to enter their life and to continue to communicate with them. And at some point, you will transact with them. But by having a conversation means that you have a broker and a conduit to other groups that you can enter into because you have someone who you can partner with who is a lead blocker for you into that group. So conversation starts yes, I have a new potential client, but it's also I have a potential broker as well or a conduit. So when you start to engage, you start to learn more. Oh, wow, you're a doctor. Is there like a doctor's network? Yeah, I belong to one. Great. I reach out to affinity groups a lot, attorneys, and I speak to them about, um, how to prepare X, Y, and Z, making it up. But if there's an affinity group, and I'm sure you guys talk about a range of topics, I'd love to come in and just talk to you about real estate, what's happening. Right? I know you guys are busy. There could be interest here, and I just want to kind of demystify this for you. Right? All of a sudden, you penetrated another group of people, creating more conversations. We talked about the local service providers, plumbers, electricians. We've also talked about on previous calls, tapping into your own sphere and network of trust attorneys, financial planners, mortgage lenders, and creating opportunities to partner with them, and they bring in their network around something that could be topical. And these are all ways in which to grow your sphere, tap into different networks. So don't be afraid to ask for permission. Don't be afraid to let people know that, yeah, you are trying to grow your business. Many times they're trying to do the same thing. And there's no shame or no issue in sharing that. And you find that once you do, you kind of move from, oh, salesperson, I think about this person in relation to what I just bought and sold to, oh, I'm dealing with a human being that, like everybody else, they're trying to reach the next level in their profession. So just that vulnerability there opens up a lot of opportunity. We talked about this. I won't go through this in great detail. This is meant for you when you guys leave here, just to have some ideas of everything I just said. What does this look like, right? The strategy insight offer, client success, you know, give to get referral, and then home maintenance guide. All these, if you think about the flow of a client of yours, if you're representing a buyer, right? When you start working with them, the service in which you provide, they transact, milestone moment, maybe a first time home buyer, maybe not. What happens in this moment where they buy? Where can I inject myself before somebody else does? Where might there be confusion, stress? Enter here, right? First time home buyer. Do they know how to think about what they just bought? The magnitude of what they bought, right? The fact that they bought something, an asset. Great. Here's a way for you to come in, help frame it on your terms, so you can be a part of their life moving forward. So these are just kind of ways in which you can engage. So when you think about the anatomy and offer, so what makes a good one, right? And thinking about it, your audience, right? Who is it for? So we talked about engaging your network that you've worked with, people you've done business with, but think about people who you connected with, past seller leads, buyer leads that never came to fruition. Maybe you had a conversation with them, maybe it wasn't the right time, you lost touch. Probably a lot of you, hey, I'm going to put it into a bucket. Maybe I'll revisit it, but maybe not. Situations change. We know this. And so people that you might have had, some conversation with, regardless if it was one conversation, they let you in the door, gives you permission to have another. So doing a pulse check, things change. We're in a dynamic market. We want to make sure you're prepared. The trigger, right? The urgency, market shift, equity growth, limited inventory. Why act now? Did you know? Here's why this matters to you. Right? That's important. The offer, what it is that you are actually offering them. And so again, not one way. Hey, I have something of interest to you. I'm willing to give this to you. What might seem like high value to them, low effort for you. Just you might want to be aware of this. You might find this interesting. You might know someone who finds this interesting. I do this for my clients. I wanted to extend it to you. Great. It'd be great if we could have 15 minutes of your time just to see where you're at right now. Let's set up a strategy call. How do we help you prepare? Right? You gave them something? Sure. I'm willing to do that. You're right. I haven't thought about preparing. Call to action, right? What should they do next? So here's this thing, book a call, be very intentional, set some time. What days work for you? Don't leave it up to, sure, let me know what works. Like, let's get a time on the calendar now because the market's moving fast. Does Thursday work? Be very intentional, put them on the back foot, frame it, and make it seem as though, hey, there's a lot of activity. You'll be missing out if you don't prioritize this. And if they don't respond, make sure that the consistency of communication, this is the hygiene piece, right, is there. So, hey, Tim, we spoke, we didn't get a strategy session, just following it up, checking in on you, making sure you're good. A lot of my clients booking time, just want to make sure we find some time for you. Again, to remember that, it's a lot. Making sure you have a system, CRM in place that just sequences this so you don't have to focus on manually doing it. It's working in the background where you can focus on getting the next lead, closing the next deal. So the one takeaway here is when you think about offers that I want you to think about is when reaching out to people, don't think about it as here's what I'm selling. Are you interested? They're probably not. And more of hey, I have something that could be of interest to you because I'm thinking about where you're at in your life and all the things that might be going on. And I just want to help. I just want to be a partner for you on this journey. Right? Sending this to you. Right. Hey, we did I know you're busy. We had the transaction that we had. Hopefully, you had an amazing experience with me. I'm trying to grow my business. Would you mind posting a Google review? Would really help me out. Or is there anybody you think that you talk to or engage with in your sphere that might be struggling or interested, or maybe not interested, but just needs a partner? Right? Those are the ways to kind of message this, right? But make sure that we are giving something of value to them so they feel as though they owe you something in return. And I think that's the main point that I want you guys to walk away
I
with.
have a full cup here. I gotta tip it out. I'm listening to a. Oops.
So I think that was Mary. Mary, if you could put your
Sorry, already done.
no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. So I'll leave you guys with this. This is kind of this offer workshop, offer builder workshop, right? The step-by-step approach to doing it. And what I would like you guys to do as you think about next week's session, where we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but how do we actually execute this, right? Which channel do we execute it in, right? Like, is there a preferred way to do it, right? What moves the needle with certain clients, what doesn't, right? Is it an email? Is it a postcard? How can we do it digitally, right? We'll talk more about that with Tony, but I want you to think about your network of past clients, the people who maybe you didn't transact with, but you had a conversation with, maybe even just leads that, hey, like, it's worth revisiting with them because it was a couple years ago, a year ago, didn't hear back, but it doesn't mean that, they're not in the market now. And what is it that you have in your repertoire that you can create that is digestible, the format of it allows for you to easily send it, that could be of value, that is contextual and topical with something that they might be experiencing right now. And I'll tell you this, in this moment that we're in right now, where we're headed into the fall, you're hearing commentary around interest rates may drop. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. It seemed to me that one such thing to be reaching out to people about is, if they own a home, are you prepared? Right? Do you know what's going on? Is your situation changed? And if it has, let's make sure you are prepared to take advantage of it. And if you're working with buyer clientele, hey, for the first time, stuff might be affordable. So if you haven't been in the market sitting on the sidelines here, let's have a conversation. I work with Compass. We have a ton of inventory, right? People are inventory will be coming onto the market. So I want you to get a head start, as opposed to we've timed it too late and people have bid up the price. Right. Here's my point of view. Here's some commentary. Here's my take on what's going on. Love to sit down with you. Right. Offer. Now they open up. So prep for session 8. Think about an offer. And again, you don't have to do this, but just I want you guys thinking about it and coming into this conversation, because Tony will engage with you guys around this. The one thing that you've sent out to the market that might have worked really, really well, maybe there's one thing that you've been sending out that maybe could be worded slightly different, or maybe you have not sent something out and this is the first time you're doing it. But all the things I mentioned around the market conditions, the audience you're reaching out to, what is something that may be easy for you to create, but you think really could unlock a great conversation or get someone to open up. And just literally think about that and define it. And I'm going to say have it ready, but think about that as this is your tool. You can call it a weapon, but this is something that you will be using to engage and stimulate conversation. Think about a segment that you want to go after. Right? I'd say past clients, but focus, right? Don't try to, new clients, clients that didn't engage and respond, past clients, choose one. And I oftentimes think the past clients are the best one. And send it out. If it's past clients, if you got 10 of them, send it out to them and see what happens. And maybe nothing happens. Maybe something does, but you'll learn something from it, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't send it again. Moving into next week, we'll talk about, how do we measure if I do send a 10 and 0 respond, is that unsuccessful? On the face of it, it might seem that way. But you might look at it differently, saying, hey, at least I sent something to them. The assumption is they might have seen it, but it opens up the door for a possible other conversation. And we talked about it, the door knock and maybe follow up. Hey, I sent you this. Or I've been sending my clients this. Just, thought this might be helpful for you. It opens up the door to more conversations. That's all we are trying to do. So I'm going to stop there because I know it's 9:12, and we'll open up the floor for just some discussion. And yeah, I'd love to hear from those of you who, maybe you didn't call it an offer, something that you have sent out, whether it's to your past clients, whether it's to the network that, leads that didn't manifest, but something that you have felt maybe moved the needle or got you a better response. Just to kind of get some examples here. I know I mentioned some in the presentation, but it doesn't mean that that's the full kind of extent of offers. But I'd love to hear maybe some success stories from you guys, some frustrations, maybe it didn't work. This is for the group to share and us for us to learn. So anybody who has success stories, please, love to hear them. And if not, love to hear, what might not have worked as well.
Brandon, rather than a success story, I do have a question, slightly off
Sure.
topic.
Yeah.
But as you and I have chatted in private, I'm new to the industry, I'm new to the business, so I don't necessarily have a wealth of past clients to pull from.
Yep.
How would you suggest we apply this concept, and particularly for likely to sell in our CRM? And just to give you a little bit of background, using Navigate, I was able to put a group of interested individuals in my interest, individuals together that are showing up in my likely to sell. How would you this method and apply it to somebody that you've never met? They don't know you. But
Yeah.
there is an opportunity for you to give them information on the market. There is an opportunity for you to initiate that conversation. How would you suggest we start that interaction?
Yeah, I think, thank you for sharing that, Amanda. I think whether it's whether it's a prospect that you've never spoken before, or someone that's in your sphere that you've worked with before, and if you've found, and we talked about it in our previous conversation, right? You found a clue that could unlock value, that could be of interest to that person. And I just want to make sure that you're aware and that So I can't tell you what channel is best. I don't know enough about, the makeup of the audience, where you're actually targeting, age and that. But I always think that, and it's crazy, it might be counterintuitive, you introducing yourself as, saying, state the obvious. We've not talked before. We've not met. You don't have to mention you don't have a book or a wealth of clients. But one of the things that, when looking at the market that you found was an interesting opportunity, and I'm reaching out to homeowners just to make sure they're aware to help them. And I've found that some aren't. And so this is primarily why you're reaching out. I think if you have something that can create value or raise awareness around a potential problem, for me, this is less about sounding, hey, I'm working with Compass and this, this, and this, and this, and being like, hey, like I'm looking at the market because I know that one, things are changing, things are shifting, interest rates. My clients, there's a lot of confusion. Here's a potential opportunity, and I want to make sure you're prepared. So I guess the answer to your question is if you frame it along the lines of preparedness,
Mhm.
I think it's a great way to get in there to show them, hey, you might not have been aware that there's all this equity you can unlock. And again, I don't know what the thing is, the nugget that you found from Navigate with the likely to sell, but if they are showing up as likely to sell and you see something that's spiking there, at least you have the talking points to kind of guide them
Yeah.
as to why.
I think the
What
low-hanging fruit, and just based on I guess the data criteria that I used, is that you have properties that were purchased within the last 10 to 15 years that were purchased at
Yep,
100,000 that are now valued at over 400,000. So
exactly.
would you suggest I take the time and go through all the CMAs and put together a likely to sell price and introduce that to them, or would you approach it a little bit softer?
Yeah, I think one thing, with Navigate that we saw was an opportunity is because we have a estimated value on some of these homes, and you can quickly tell, like, hey, if there's been a ton of appreciation, in the coming weeks, you'll see mortgage data there, so you'll see if there's a lot of equity there. Um, I think one thing you can do, um, without kind of like looking like someone who's really forensic and like, I know all this information on you, which is a little bit creepy,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Is you can do the same effort, but just say, hey, this is an area I cover. They don't really know what that means, right? And I'm reaching out to homeowners who might have this. So you know that they do, right? They may not know, but it might prompt them to do a little bit of investigation, and it's a lighter, more approachable way than saying, I know this about you, right? Like
Yeah.
I've researched you, right? So um I don't necessarily have the right answer. We can have a separate conversation. We can kind of
Yeah.
go into it if you want, because I kind of have an idea of how to approach it, but there's a couple more questions and I don't want to, so the group doesn't want to hear that. But like we can have an offline conversation that can help you be a bit more precise with that approach. So
Thank you. Thank you for
So
yeah.
that.
here's a thought for Amanda. What a thing that I've actually done in neighborhoods around likely to sells and things like that is the easiest way. Everybody looks at Zillow for their values. Just simply take their Zillow report, take a screenshot of that, and say, "Hey, you bought this house for." Zillow said even tells you what their house is, what they bought their house
Mm-hmm.
for. So I just say, would you sell for 10% more than what Zillow says? And just drop that, take a screenshot of that, print that, put a post-it on there, send it to the client, and say, would you sell 10% more? I saw your house. I'm working on another house in this area. I looked your house. I saw, hey, you have X amount of equity. Here's what Zillow says. Would you sell for 10% more? And send that in a letter out to them, and do that for all of your likely to sells. I have done this and I have got a response from that. So and that has it does, I mean, it's not like bulletproof, but it does work. So I would do something like that.
Matt, that's a
Awesome.
good one.
Thank you,
The
Matt.
the 10% above piece there is interesting. What's your call to action? So like you say, hey, would you sell it? Get in touch with me. Do you drive them to some place or
Yes, I drive them to my phone number or my
Mm-hmm.
website, either
yeah,
one.
but you have that there. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a generic letter that I put it in a letter form. So I actually take a copy of it and I
Yeah.
drop a letter and just say, hey, I was doing research in the neighborhood. I saw your house. Your house has X amount of equity. Would you, and Zillow says your home is worth this. Would you sell it for 10% more than that? If so, give me a call. We'll talk. Because every house is different. Nobody knows what the value is until you actually
Yeah,
see that.
Exactly.
And then, it could be worth 10% more. It could be 10% less. You don't know one way or
sure.
the
But it
other.
just starts the conversation, right? Like we'll figure that
Conversation.
out.
Right. I mean, the goal is to start the conversation. It's not necessarily, to be 100% accurate on that front, because we can't be accurate until we walk in the door and then make the determination. But at least you get in the door and get the appointment.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Matt.
Sure. So, Brandon, one of
Anyone
the other
else? Yep.
Yeah, one other thing, Brandon, I've been out of town for the last couple of weeks, so I'm just getting back into things. Is that
Mhm.
off that you did at least a few weeks ago where we could have a one-on-one conversation still out there?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, just send you an email.
Yeah. You can send me an email. I can follow up and just send you a link to schedule a meeting with me, but it's certainly still on the table. I've found, I think some, others hopefully will say the same, that they are very informative. It's less about navigating, more about your business and, how do we develop like this bulletproof playbook for you, kind of touching on some of this stuff as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that because a lot of the stuff that you're talking today is, I have like 800 likely to sells. I have lots of past
Mhm.
clients. My referral business is terrible. It's what you were saying with the guy who says, yeah,
Yeah.
I have practically zero referrals in 30 years in the business. So, and I follow up a
Yeah.
lot. So kind of trying to figure out how
Oh
to.
yeah, I can help you with the referral piece. The previous business that I ran was in high end kind of the home villa business, or luxury rental business, and we used to have clients spending like $500,000, $250,000 on a vacation with us, and had a great time. And like the business could not capture that business again. It was crazy to me. And the one thing you have to realize about the world we live in today is that people are as faithful as their options and as loyal as the last price they saw or as loyal as the last offer they got. Right. And so that's the way we operate. And so you could have done a great job, but let's just say I come along at the right time, introduce myself as a realtor. Oh, I really like that guy, Brandon. All of a sudden, I liked Matt, but this guy, Brandon, and he's the one talking to me now. Right.
Right.
So, what the
To me,
problem with real estate, yeah, the problem that real estate has had is that you guys haven't had a high frequency way to transact, right? So your sales and transactions are lumpy, right? So it's been a struggle to like, well, how can I keep in contact with them on a higher frequency basis if they're not buying and selling certain things? And so one of the things that we brought to Voyage was like, well, let's take a look at all the adjacencies and people you have in your network that you can add value if you ask the right questions during the initial engagement piece. Tell me a little bit about your life. You ask the right questions, they'll tell you everything. You might have someone in their network that could be of value to them. If they travel a ton, oh, like I got to travel about whatever it is, right? Now you play, and your job is to be a part of their repertoire, a partner, but you're communicating, not asking them for something. Hey, I can be helpful. Think of me if you have these issues in relation to your home or your life, right? And it's a slight shift that opens up more, dialogue. But we
yeah,
can
that'd
talk
be.
more about that.
Yeah, let's reach out and talk more about how I can coordinate that. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Brandon? Yeah,
Yes.
I have two things. What Matt was just saying, I don't think there's probably that much time left in the prospecting for the referral to dive deeper into the referrals because I kind of feel the same way. Like I've been doing this for about 20 years or so, and I would say that like past clients will use me when they want to buy or sell a house, right? They always come back,
Yeah.
98% of them, I would say. But to your point, it's not like we transact a lot with those same clients. But in terms of like having them offer referrals, I mean, I've had a few clients that are pretty good at that. But like, I feel like I also, I'm missing out because I have a lot of clients, and
Yeah.
like I said, they'll reuse me. But
Sure.
for
But they
whatever
don't.
reason, it's hard to get them to like tell a friend or something like that. And so
Have you
I
ever
don't know if
have you ever asked them? Like, I'll say this. This is again my approach. Not everybody, but like, hey, you know, what's crazy to me, like you say it in a joking way, like, we always work together. How come you never sent me to any of your friends?
Yeah, no,
You know
I
what I mean?
mean,
Like I would say that, right? Like, and it's
yeah,
not everybody can say that, but like if you, especially once you have a
yeah,
good rapport, where like what's dawned on me, right? Just
yeah,
say it in a funny way, right? And like
absolutely.
they
Yeah, I
have
mean,
to
it's,
tell you something, right? Like
yeah. I mean, that's kind of a, yeah, I guess it's not a bad idea, just kind of just sort of like jokey, because then it's not as serious or as like
well,
put you on the
I'll tell you
spot.
this, exactly this, and this is like my fiance watches me do this all the time. And a lot of things that you think are awkward or like, oh, like I can't believe if you deliver it in such a matter of fact way that doesn't place blame or fault and say you're bad for doing this, but you're like, I don't care one way or the other. Like, I'm just curious, right? And it's like you laugh about it,
Yeah,
right? Meaning
totally.
you're willing to poke fun at something that actually is annoying,
Yeah,
but you say it in such a way where it's like it's an approachable conversation as opposed to, oh God,
yeah,
this is really awkward. It literally allows you to get so much information. Like, and I do it all the time. The thing, and I've told people, I always lead a conversation to say the thing everybody's thinking and own it and frame it on your terms, and you'll win that negotiation or win that conversation. But if you own the thing that you think like, if the lady's name was Dawn, Dawn, it was crazy. I was talking to someone yesterday. We were talking about like a referral business, and I was like, Dawn, we've literally done like 2 deals together. Like, you've never once referred me anybody. Am I that bad? And she'll laugh, right? But then she'll think
that's a
about
good
it,
idea. Yeah,
right?
that's definitely a good, I mean, that's a soft way, I guess, or kind of a funny way to maybe phrase it. So yeah, thank you. My other quick question was, and I kind of put it in the chat, but my question was, like, if you're working on an offering for past clients, for instance,
Yep.
and
Yep.
your kind of typical way of communicating is email or text. Would
Yep.
you like, let's say like a neighborhood update or just kind of what's been happening if there's been a lot of sales? Would you just go ahead and send that to them? Like, hey, I've been noticing there's this activity in your neighborhood, just thought you want it, you might be interested. Or would you send them an email or text like, hey, would you be interested in this report? And then wait for them to say yes or no.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would do both, right? I would try both methods because I don't know, right? Some
Okay.
ways I would say, and this is what it's about, right? There's never a silver bullet. You're kind of A/B testing, just like you see
Okay.
people run different messages on billboards, right? What
Yeah.
resonates and what responds. So you just want to test, and then if you get a better response, cool, I know my answer, right?
Okay.
But for a market report, like for people that you've worked with and you want to send
Mhm.
it to, I think the message is different. I
Mhm.
think it's more we've built a relationship and you see because you're in the market, you're privy to conversations and you see something coming and like we should sit down. So your aim, let's get a face to face, right? And talk because I'm working with other clients and we're doing the same. Even if you aren't, you just say that you are, right? And if it's, hey, I'm just trying to get as many people as possible, you could blanket a market report, say the same thing, but your objective is different. Love to hop on a call, learn more about your situation. Right. So, same message, but you're driving to a different objective. One, let me just have a conversation to start the dialogue, introduce myself, have you get comfortable with me. Two, let's sit down and talk about it face to face, right? Because you have this relationship capital with them. And that would be the what I'm driving to. The other one is, hey, let's talk, or I'm sending this out. If you want to learn more, visit here's a landing page, give me your information, so on and so forth. Right. Or if it's something that you're doing where here's what's happening. I'm hosting a webinar, or I'm doing something at the local school with XYZ, would love for you to come. So think about those two different audiences, same offer, if you will, but what's your objective, right? And so you could do both, really, right? But just think about what you want to get. If it's the person that you worked before in the past, like why are you sending something out to them? right? Let's sit down, learn where you're at, what you're looking at. If it's, I don't know anything about you, but you could be interested in this thing, let's start a conversation. That's the other tactic. I don't know if that made sense. Did it?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Well, surprise, surprise. I actually almost held to the exact 9:30 time. That never happened. So next week we will be doing, Tony will be on the call, and we'll just be talking about implementation, execution, the how to do it. So hopefully you guys will walk away from these 2 sessions just feeling fully prepared. But thank you for your time, and feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. Take care, guys.